Assalamu alaikum, guys. Welcome to Scientific Inquiry and Research Methodology class. I'm your instructor, Dr. Muhammad Salman Butt, and we are in week 12, and we are going to study today is this survey research. So this is a very important research topic. Whenever you're going to do any kind of research, this is the most common and most widely used research design. So this is the design which you will opt in your final year research project as well. So this chapter is very important for you so that you can understand each and every aspect of survey research so that you can apply those aspects in your final year research project. The learning objective of today's class will be that it will help you to define survey research and difference between sample survey and census survey and between cross-sectional studies and longitudinal studies. And then there will be second objective, you will be able to describe survey research designing including cross-sectional study designs and longitudinal study design. And the third is describe the procedures involved in conducting survey research. First, we will start with the definition of a survey research. The survey research involves collecting data to test hypotheses or to answer questions about people's opinion on some topics or issues. As you know, like the basic core of any research is like there has to be a hypothesis, there has to be a research question. So the first thing is your research question will define what kind of research design you're going to opt. So if you're going to study the opinion of people, or if you are having a topic which is related to the current issues and you want to collect the opinion of the people about that issue, then the research design will be the survey research. So that will be the research which you will conduct to seek the answer of this question. And then the survey research can be divided into two types. One is the cross-sectional type, the other one is the longitudinal type. And that depends upon the time frame in which you want to collect the data. If you want to collect the data in a very brief and short time, then you have to opt the cross-section study design. And if you want to collect data over a longer period of time, then the longitudinal study design will be the design of choice. And then the most appropriate research question, which can identify the type of research, is a survey research, will be including a question similar to this, that the questions about people's opinion on some topics or issues, these type of research will be these type of questions will be answered by the survey research. There are some key characteristics of a survey research. The survey research is the first is you have to collect the data from a population. You know the difference between a sample and a population already, that a population is each and every person of that group will be included in the study, whereas a sample is that you have selected a portion of that population which you are going to study. And then the second is you need to collect the data through questionnaires or interviews. We will discuss about the questionnaires and interviews in great detail in the coming slides. These are the two methods which you can opt to collect the data. And then the third is construction or identification of survey instrument for collection of the data. The instrument, you have already studied this in the previous chapters, that an instrument is a tool which you will use to identify the constructs. The constructs, you know, that are the variables of interest in our study, and and you need some kind of instrument or you need some kind of tool to measure those constructs or variables. And then there has to be one important feature of survey research is that it must has a high response rate. There is a minimum number which we will discuss in the coming slides. So the survey research can be divided into two broad terms. The one is a survey, which is a sample survey, and the second one is the census survey. A sample survey is a survey research in which a researchers attempt to infer information about a population based on representative samples drawn from the population. So in this case, you have opted a sample instead of a complete population group. But whereas in the census survey, which you called in Urdu is the Mardam Shumari, so in this Mardam Shumari or the census survey, you are going to collect the data from each and every participant of that population. So you are not allowed to make any participant in that population to be exempted from your survey research. If it will be a purely census survey, then each and every participant living in that particular region will be included in your research, and that will be called as the census survey. The survey research, which is the sample survey research we are talking about, we are not going to deal with the census survey at present. We are going to discuss about the sample survey design. And in the sample survey design, the research can be further divided into the two types. One is the cross-sectional study design, and the second one is the longitudinal study design. The cross-sectional study design is a survey research in which you are going to administer to a population once only. I'm going to use the word population in here, but that means is the sample. Okay, so you are not getting confused with these terminologies. Once you are doing the sample survey research, you can say your sample as a population group as well. So you are going to study your population once only. You're not going to make a second attempt to measure the data from the same population. And but in the longitudinal survey, the survey are administered to a population more than once, with significant period of time elapsing between each administration of the survey. So that means you are going to measure the data, same data or a different type of data over a longer period of time. Then you will be having the relaxation that you can collect the data multiple times from the same person. This is the major difference between the two types, between the cross-sectional and the longitudinal survey. So this the key difference between the two types is the number of times the survey is administered. So in cross-sectional study design, you are going to make only once, whereas in longitudinal study design, you are going to make multiple attempts to collect the data. Now we are going to talk about the cross-sectional survey research. In cross-sectional surveys, you are going to collect the data only in a single point. And the definition which is given in your book is a cross-sectional survey is one in which the data are collected from selected individual at a single point in time. So there are the important thing is the first is you are going to collect data from the selected individuals. So that means you will be having one inclusion and exclusion criteria. You are not going to collect the data from anyone else. You are going to make a specific research question. You are going to make a specific inclusion exclusion criteria for your sample, and then you will collect the data from those selected participants only. And then the next important point is it will be single point in time only. You are not going to make any multiple attempts, or you can't take reading from the same person twice. There are some advantages for the cross-sectional study design, and these advantages are that the cross-sectional study design is effective for providing a snapshot of the current behavior, attitude, and beliefs in a population. And the second one is it provide data relatively quickly, as you are going to make a quick effort, and you're going to collect the data only once, and so it will be not that much time consuming, but it will give you a snapshot. The word snapshot is the representative of cross-sectional study design. So whenever someone asks you what do you mean by cross-sectional study design, you can simply say it's a snapshot. The snapshot means just like you have taken a picture, and in that picture, the thing which appears to you will be your survey research in a cross sectional way. As the name indicates, that the cross sectional is like cutting the things cross sectionally and then look into the matter how it is. So you will be going to make the inferential statistics, you are going to make the conclusion based upon the vision at point you are having. You're not going to make multiple slices, you are just going to make one slice only, and then you have to conclude, and you have to make a conclusion that what you have narrated out of this snapshot. So this is one of the basic core advantage of your cross-section study design. But there are some disadvantages associated with your cross-section study design, that the cross-section studies are not effective if the researcher goal is to understand a trend or development over a longer period of time. As you know that we are going to make only one time period, only one time data collection, and it is a snapshot. So you're not going to make any movie in cross-sectional study design, so it will be a picture only. You're not going to make any movie, so that you cannot understand any trends, or you cannot understand any development over the period of time. And the second disadvantage is a single point in time often does not provide you a broad enough perspective to inform decisions about changes in processes and systems reliability. And you have to understand, if you want to understand the reliability of any system, if you want to see any change in a system, then the cross section study design is not the choice of research design for you guys. The second type is the longitudinal survey research. As we know now that the cross-sectional is one point only, whereas the opposite to that one will be the longitudinal survey research. The longitudinal survey research is defined in your book as a study research in which the data are collected at two or more times. Longitudinal study design requires an extended commitment by the researcher and the participant. In longitudinal, as the name indicates, that the longitudinal means that you're going to make a longitudinal efforts. You're going to study the population for a longer period of time, so that need patience on not only from the researcher but also from the participants as well, because in the researcher perspective you have to go again and again to the same participant over a longer period of time. But on the other hand, sometimes it happens that the participant is willing in the beginning to participate in the study, but as the study progresses, the participant decided not to get involved in the study any longer. In that case, it shows that this kind of study design are having some advantages and disadvantages. The cross-sectional or the longitudinal study design can further be divided into different types. So these are the categories of longitudinal surveys. The longitudinal survey design can be categorized into four basic types, and all collect data multiple times, which is a similar aspect in all these four categories. However, they differ in how the research samples the population administer the surveys. The first category is the trend survey. A trend survey is defined as a trend survey examines changes over time in a particular population defined by some particular traits or traits. So in that one, you are going to measure the trend, like how the trend is being changes, and the researcher is able to analyze changes in the attitude, belief, behaviors within that particular population over time. The example in your book is given for a group of students which are called as valedictorian. That means a student group of students which are like getting pass out from the school, and they are saying that if you are going to study fourth grader, 12 years old or female from California who are currently graduating from high school and who are valedictorian of their classes. So you're going to see the trend of these students, like how they actually behave and how they actually have the beliefs about the institution. So all these things you are going to see, that the students who are getting passed out or the passing out from the universities, or just like in this case from the school, how the trend of those students are changing, that every time you are going to study a new population, this is not the same population you are studying, but the point of studying this population will be the same. So the different populations, but the point of study will be the same, just like you are going to see at the end of their semester, at the end of their educational program, that what are the trends these students are having. The simplest example I can give for this kind of survey research is, like, if you want to see the trend about the students getting admitted at University of South Asia, and it is a policy of HCC that the student should have at least 60% of marks in their FSC examinations. but you want to see the trend whether we are having students above 60% or almost near to the 60% of grades for the FSC for those students who are enrolled in first semester. So you will be measuring over 3 years of time or making it like even longer period of time. But the point of studying will be the first semester, first day, and you are going to collect the data about the grades of those students who are getting admitted in University of South Asia in the first semester. And if you want to make it more precise, you can decide a specific program as well. And then you will analyze whether the trend is increasing or whether the trend is decreasing or whether the trend is remaining the same. Just like if you are saying the trend is increasing, you can say like the students with higher grades are getting admitted at University of South Asia. And if you can say the trend is decreasing, like the students with the lower grades, around 60% are getting admitted at University of South Asia. And if you can say that the trend is remains the same, that means the same percentage will be observed over the period of 3 years for the FSC graduated students, for the FSC pass students. So this is the study which is important in order to analyze the trend. And using a trend survey, the researcher is able to analyze changes in the attitude, beliefs, or behavior within that particular population over a period of time. The next most important longitudinal survey research is the cohort study. The cohort mean is a group of people sharing the same characteristics. So this is one of the most important research design which is widely used in the world in order to study longitudinal survey research. And the book defines a cohort survey involves one population selected at a particular time period, multiple samples taken and survey at different points in time. So the first concept is you have to understand the cohort. The cohort is a group of people who are sharing the same characteristics. And the second is you are going to study for a longer period of time as this is a longitudinal survey research. The example given in your book is again for that valedictorian one. First, we will go through this example and then I will give you another example for your better understanding. And the book says like the researcher could identify 1400 female valedictorians in 2005 and send surveys to 300 randomly selected participants. And then in 2006, the researcher will return to the same population of 1400 valedictorian and again randomly select the 300 participant to survey. And each sample could be composed of different valedictorian, although the random sampling may result in some overlapping, but all sample would be selected only from the population of female valedictorian from the 2005 group. So in this example, the book is saying that you have selected a group of 1400 female valedictorians, or you can simply say the 1400 students who are graduated in 2005, and then you studied out of those 1400 only 300 through a randomly selected participant. The process of randomization is a complete concept we will discuss in great details when we will study the experimental research design, but in random sampling, each and every participant is having equal chances to be selected. So you have selected a 300 participant out of 1400 graduated students in 2005, and then you conducted the survey. And then afterward, you conducted the same survey by repeating the same process, and then you will select 300 participants again, and then you will collect the data again in 2006, 2007, and so on as long as you want to conduct that study. And then you will try to answer whether the concept of those cohort group has been changed, the belief of those cohort group has been changed, or the attitude of those cohort group has been changed over the period of time you are studying. So this is very much important so that you can understand the cohort belief, opinion, and attitude over this period of time. The other example, the most easiest one which I can give it to you, is about the nuclear attack at Japan. After that one, that Nagasaki or Hiroshima cities, the population living there were exposed to the radiations. And then the word or the researcher were interested what are the effect of those radiations. So the people living in those groups are, or those cities are the cohort, as they are sharing the same characteristics of radiation. And then the researchers start measuring the data from those population over a period of time, that how their physical, mental, or physiological perspectives are changes, how their beliefs are changes, how their psychological perspectives are changes, and they were measuring those population over a period of time. And then they studied it through a cohort survey, and then they decided, and then they concluded about how the trend is being changed or how the belief of those people has been changed. And then they concluded about their study. In cohort study, there is one more important feature, that in cohort study you will study a rare exposure. And in rare exposure means that to which a population you are going to study is exposed. And that rare exposure will be measured, and then it will be studied, and then you will see what are the diseases that can occur because of that rare exposure. So this is one of the key distinctive feature of cohort study, that in cohort study you will study a rare disease, a rare exposure, and you can have multiple diseases. The next type of study is the panel survey. A panel survey involves a sample in which the same individuals are studied over time. So you have to select a panel. Just like in the previous studies, we were selecting a sample within the sample itself by randomization. But in this one, once you have selected that sample, you are not allowed to change those samples. So they will be called as the panel. And then that panel will be studied over a period of time, and then you will see their attitude, beliefs, and behaviors over that period of time. A frequent problem with the panel study is that loss of individual from the study, as you are compelled in panel survey research that you are not going to make any changes in the population. So once the individual is being lost or being died or some kind of reason, the participant is no longer is traceable, then your panel survey research will be affected, and the result of that study will be affected. And the example in your book is given for 3-year panel survey of again the female valedictorians of class 2000 who graduated from inner city school in Los Angeles and San Francisco. The exact same individual would be surveyed in each of the 3 years of the study. A frequent problem with the panel survey and the core survey to a lesser degree is loss of individual from the study because of relocation, name change, lack of interest, or death. This attrition is especially problematic the longer a longitudinal survey study is continuing. So if you will be having a longer duration panel survey research, there will be more chances of losing your panel participants. So this is very much important, that you must have to adhere with the same sample size, with the same panel group. If that the participant for some reason is excluded from the study, then your study result will be affected. The last category of the longitudinal survey research is the follow-up survey research. The follow-up survey research addresses the development or change in previously designed or previously studied population sometime after the original survey was given. So it is simply a study. It is again you can study one population over a period of time, and in this population you will be making in this way, that you will collect the data at one period of time, and then after some period of time you decided to collect the data again from the same population. So then it will be the thing that you are studying the same population after some period of time, and that will be known as the follow-up study. The example given in your book is about a researcher who wanted to study the female valedictorians in California a number of years after the original study was concluded, would identify individuals who had participated in the original study and survey them again to examine changes in the attitude, behavior, or beliefs. So this is the example which I will say, like, it's a simple type of survey research in which you will study one population at one time, and after some time you are going to make a follow-up study, just like you are making a doctor appointment. The doctor gives you the thing like you have to make a follow-up. So once you are visiting for the doctor for the first time, then he or she gives you another appointment, and that will be known as the follow-up. So this is the type of research which will be known as the follow-up survey research. And there are ways of collecting the data. And now, after understanding the types of the survey research, now you are going to opt an option how you're going to collect the data. So you are clear now about your study research design, whether it will be a cross-sectional study design or whether it will be a longitudinal study design. In both cases, you can use the questionnaire and you can use an interview. So these are the medium for you guys to collect the data. So in a questionnaire form, a follow-up survey addresses development or change in a previously studied population sometime after the original survey was given. So in a questionnaire type, if you want to if you want to conduct a survey research on a specific population, you have to make one questionnaire, and that questionnaire will be carrying all the questions of your interest, and those questions will be asked to the population, and the population has to fill those questions, and then you will get back those questionnaires. But sometimes it happens like that you are not able to probe into the exact problem, and for that case you have to make an interview. An interview is an oral, in person question and answer session between a researcher and an individual respondent. Whereas the questionnaire is just like you are giving a question to the participant and they can answer anything in that one. But in an interview, you are going to probe into a specific problem and you will be directing the questions directions as well. Okay, now in order to conduct a survey research through questionnaire study, the first thing is you have to state the problem. Stating the problem means that the problem or the topic studied and the contents of the questionnaire must be of sufficient significance both to motivate potential respondents to respond and to justify the research effort in the first place. So the first important thing in any research is that you must have an interesting research problem. So without an interesting research problem, you will not be able to attract the attention of the participant. Even you will not get anything good out of your research as well. So the important thing is that you should formulate an interesting problem, and the most important for that one is I will suggest you should select a problem which will be of contemporary issues, just like if there is issue of corona these days. So if you want to study anything of interest to attract that interest of the respondent, it will be nice that you will be studying the issues of coronas. So you can make an effort, like in the physical therapy perspective, you can ask that what are the advantages and disadvantages of home-based exercises, or what are the effect of sedentary lifestyles. So these are kind of the questions which will attract the respondent to answer, and you will get a higher response rate. But if you are going to ask a question which are not of any interest for the respondent, then they might will not answer you or might will not participate in the study. And then there will be different type of questionnaires. The type of items in the questionnaire will decide the type of questionnaire you are having. There are two types of questionnaire. One is a structured questionnaire and the other one is an unstructured questionnaire. A structured questionnaire is defined as it requires items as the respondent to choose among the provided response options. So you are going to give the options to the respondent, and respondent just have to opt the correct options or the option of their choice. Whereas in unstructured items format, in that one the respondent has a complete freedom of response. So in that means you are going to give a question, but a respondent can answer anything for that particular question. So this is one of the example which is given in your book, and this is about a questionnaire, and it is explaining about all the type of questions you can ask from your population or your participant. So if you can see in the first portion, it is saying about the demographic information. The demographic information means that you are going to collect the basic information about the participant. and you are having the options of just like you're going to ask about the gender and then you are making it male and female. That means you have structured the question and the respondent cannot answer anything out of these two options. And then there is total years of teaching, and you have also given the options for that one is 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, 11 to 15 years, 16 to 20 years, 21 to 25, and more than 25. So the respondent has to select or opt the options from these choices only. He or she is not able to make uh, any choice which will be outside of these options. So these type of questions are the structured questions. But if you can see in question number three, there is the department please list. In this one, you have given the respondent a complete freedom to answer anything. So the respondent can respond with any answer in this question. So you can say they are going to make it Department of Physiotherapy, Department of Nutrition, Department of Architecture, Department of Computer Sciences. So these are the open choices which you have given it to the participants. So these are the unstructured questions. More unstructured question you can see there are some other types as well. There is a checklist. You can just make it in this one like this is a checklist. The respondent just has to make a check or make a tick on that one or make a cross on the question for their optimal choice. And there is a Likert scale. The Likert scale means that you have given a scale from one point to another point one. Like this means is strongly agree, and you can say like the unanimously, or you can say like uncertain. And then there is like the disagree or strongly disagree. So these are the spectrum you have given it to your participant. So these are the choices. Like if someone wants to like that he is not sure about anything and he wants to select that uncertain option, then he can choose this U option in here in this Likert scale. But he or she is strongly agree with any point, then he can select this SD option in here. So this is again a closed-ended questionnaire. So the participant is having the options to select from here. And then there is a free response in here. This is the open-ended question we were talking about, that the participant is having a free choice, and then they are able to select any answer of their choice as well in here, and then they are not restricted to some particular options. And there are some guidelines to construct a good questionnaire. And the first one for that one given in your book is make the questionnaire attractive and brief. That means that the questionnaire has to be short, it has to be attractive, and that should attract the attention of the participant. The second is know what information you need and why. It has to be related to your research question. You should not ask anything which is not relevant to your research question. The third is it include only items that relate to your study's objective. The next is collect demographic information if needed. Focus items on a single topic or idea. Define or explain ambiguous terms. Ambiguous terms means like if you're going to make any medical kind of research and there is some kind of word which is having a different understanding in the general population, then you have to make an explanation for that particular term. And then there is word question as clearly as possible. You should not use any difficult words so that it should not be difficult for the participant to fill or to answer that particular question. And avoid leading questions. That means that you are giving the hint to the participant that after giving this question answer, you can answer the next question in this way very easily. And that every question should be related, but it should not be giving the idea that these two questions are interrelated. And then there is avoid or carefully word items that are potentially controversial or embarrassing. You should be taking consideration of the cultural perspective of that region as well. Like if you are going to make any study, you should consider that what are the cultural norms and what are the cultural ethics of that particular population. And if you are going to make any potentially controversial or embarrassing statement, then you will not get the response for those particular questions. The next is organize items from general to specific. You should make it like easier for the participants so that they will get familiar with the topic first, and then you should probe into the specific question of interest. And then there is use example if items format is unusual, if using open-ended questions leaves sufficient space for the respondent to write their responses, try to keep items and response options together. Subject items to a pre-test review of the questionnaire as well. So this is important guidelines for constructing a questionnaire. Now there are some different ways of distributing the questionnaire and collect the data. The most commonly used are the mail, email, telephone, personal administration, and interviews. There are advantages and disadvantages of each method. If you are going to make your questionnaire to be distributed through mail, the advantage you will be having that it will be inexpensive and can be confidential or anonymous and easy to score most items and standardize items and procedures. So it will be having a good advantage to have your questionnaire distributed through mailing address. But the problem with the mail distribution of questionnaire is that it will be having a very low response rate, and you cannot probe or explain or follow up items if the participant is having any problem in getting understanding of any of your research question or any question in your questionnaire. Then you cannot explain it to them that this is the meaning of this particular question, and the respondent will be limited to respond who can read. You cannot collect the data from the illiterate population. And then there is the possibility of low response rate as well, and this will be making the disadvantage for this method. And the next type of method is the email method. The email method is a speedy one, and it will be easier as well to send the questionnaire by email, and you can easily target the respondent well as well, and other advantages same as that of mail distribution of your questionnaire. But in the email distribution of your questionnaire, there are disadvantages that not everyone has the email, possibility of multiple replies from the single participant, and other disadvantages same as mail. And then there are the next method is the telephone one, that you are having high response rate as you can engage your participant at the time of filling the questionnaire. So then it will be a possibility that you can engage the participant in getting your questionnaire filled, and it will be a quick data collection and can reach a range of locations and part and respondents. But there are disadvantages that you require phone number list, difficult to get in-depth data, and then you have to get the phone numbers first, which is quite difficult. And then it will be also difficult to get in-depth of data because there might be an issue of confidence. There might be an issue of trust, that the participant are not getting trusted with you guys because you are going to ask them some specific questions. And then there is administrator must be trained, and if you want to avoid this kind of phenomena like the participant are not responding well, then you have to make some kind of training before so that the participant can answer you sufficiently. Then there is personal administration, which you will mostly do in your final year research project, that you are going to visit the participant by yourself and you are going to give the question to the participant, and then the participant will fill the questionnaire in your presence. And the advantage of this one is that efficient when respondent are closely situated, because you are there to guide the respondent, you are there to respond the respondent, so that the respondent will be very much actively filling that questionnaire. But this method is having some disadvantages, that it is a time consuming one and administrator must be trained as well. And then the interview method, it will be giving you an idea if you want to probe into a specific problem in more detail, and it will give you the advantage that you can probe, you can follow up, you can explain questions, usually high return rate, and you will be having recorded session as well of that data collection method, and you will be having the flexibility if you want to make any certain changes. And then there are some kind of disadvantages to this method as well, that it is again time consuming. No anonymity will be there because you are making the participant exposed, but you can make the anonymity in your data presenting form, but might be the participant wants to hide or wants to remain anonymous in order to give the information. And then there are possible that the interviewer is biased. That means you are having some specific interest as well, like you might will be making your interest towards the specific direction of your data collection. And then the complex scoring of unstructured items, administrator must be trained, and this is the most important one, that you must be trained and well prepared before going to collect the data. Okay, now there are some rule of thumb in order to conduct a survey research. The first one is the response rate should be minimum 50%. If you have sent the questionnaire to 100 people, then at least 50% must respond. At least 50 participants must respond. And otherwise, your data will not be considered as valid and reliable to make any kind of generalization through that sample. And then dealing with the non-responses, you can get connected and find the reason for their non-responsiveness. So this is very much important, so that you can ask the participant why you didn't respond it, or what are the possible challenges you face, so you can get the non-responsiveness and you can address those issues if you came across any. And then conducting follow-up activities, that despite your best effort, not everyone to whom you send a questionnaire is going to return it. So you have to again and again call them, you have to address them, so that they can fill the questionnaire and get it done for you. Now you have collected your data, and the next step is like you have to organize your data, and the best thing is that you must have to tabulate your data. So this is known as tabulating your questionnaire responses. So each and every item or each and every question you are having in your questionnaire, you are going to now tabulate that questionnaire, and that will be the easiest way of making your responses arranged. And the easiest way to tabulate question responses is to have participant mark responses to close-ended questions on a scannable answer sheet. So this is something very much advanced, I will say, just like you might have conducted any examination by the government for Punjab Public Service Commission or any other well established organization. So they ask you, even for your medical entry test, they ask you to mark the answer or to circle the answer with a pencil, with a lead pencil or a black pen, and then they scan that sheet, and then that scanning makes all the answer readable, and then they can calculate your answer, or they can make or tabulate your answers as well, or your responses as well. So this is something the easiest way, but I think for your cases it will not be possible to have that scannable answer sheet. But the easiest way is that the questionnaire you have filled, you start filling those questionnaires in your SPSS sheet. So you start filling the responses. You are going to make the table of that SPSS of your questionnaire in the SPSS sheet. Then that will be known as the tabulating of your questionnaire responses. And once you have tabulated your questionnaire responses, then the next step is to analyze the result. The simplest way to present the result is to indicate the percentage of respondent who selected each alternative for each item. So the first thing you have to do is to make the tables in terms of percentages. The percentages table, you can say this is also called as a descriptive statistics. We have already studied the descriptive statistics in chapter 12, and you know like how to present the data in a tabulated form. And however, analyzing the summed item, a clusters group of items focused on the same issues is more meaningful and reliable. Then you can investigate comparison in your data by examining the responses of different subgroups in the samples. So then you have to make the inferential statistics. So in any analysis result, there will be two parts always. The first one is the descriptive statistics. The second one is the inferential statistic. Descriptive one is presenting the numbers and frequencies only. Whereas in inferential statistics, you are going to make the comparison between different groups, just like the male and female, educated and uneducated, and this will be concluding your result in inferential statistics. Then we are in the last slide of today's lecture, which is giving you the summary about the survey research method. So it is in your book as well, and this is very important slide. So if you can see in here, the process of research starts with definition of your research problem. So once you are able to formulate your hypothesis, your research question, then you will be able to decide whether this is a survey research or not, and then you are going to conduct your research in this perspective. And then you are going to opt whether you need to collect the data one time or you want to collect the data over a period of time. You want to see the change or you want to see the snapshot only. So you have to select cross-sectional study design or you have to select a longitudinal study design. And then the type of appropriate research questions, then you have to decide whether you're going to study the people opinion or about a specific topic issue. So this is what your research question will define as well. The key characteristics we have already discussed, and then there are steps in the process that you have to state the problem or the topic, construct or locate the questionnaire, pilot test the questionnaire. Pilot testing means that the questionnaire, if you have developed by yourself, you are going to make a pre-testing of that questionnaire, whether that can and that can give you the answers or that can give you the required answers or not. Prepare the cover letter. This is one of the important thing, that you will be making one letter to explain the research to the participants so that they can get confidence in filling the form as well. Administer the questionnaire, then you have to give the questionnaire to the participant, tabulate the questionnaire answers, and then analyze the answer, and then you have to write the response. And again, the most important potential challenge is that you must keep this thing in your mind, that the response rate should be greater than 50%. And the example we just discussed is a school superintendent wants to know how high grade teacher perceive their school. So this is one of the survey about the opinion of the people, and then they are going to make the survey research for this particular research question. So this concludes today's lecture, and we will meet in the interactive session with this particular topic, and we will discuss in more detail about this particular topic. If you have any question, you can send me an email on my email address salman.butt@usa.edu.pk, and I will meet you in the interactive session for this week. Thank you very much.